The wind howls, echoing through the stone walls of the castle. Deep inside, a family huddles against the fire, praying it'll last until dawn. Because when morning comes, the battle for survival starts all over again. I'm Josh, and on this episode of the Infographic Show, we'll be asking, how did people sleep in medieval castles without freezing to death? You were born in a castle, but you're the furthest thing from a nobleman. In your 12th year, you've learned your place well. Your parents are the servants of Duke Barrington, a rich and powerful man in this corner of England. Your mother works with the domestic staff, helping to keep the castle clean, preparing the Duke's food, and attending to whatever demand he makes. Your father, meanwhile, has a more peaceful job. Usually, he keeps watch outside of the walls, guarding the gate along with the younger soldiers he's trained. And no matter the season, it's never easy. From a young age, you were trained to serve. You were given a wooden sword as soon as you were able to stand. Your father taught you the basic defenses, to parry, to counter. Eventually, you'll join him on the wall when you're old enough. Your twin sister Matilda was holding the broom as soon as she could walk. You work with her and your mother in the kitchen and the laundry. There's no such thing as a free lunch in the Duke's castle, and you're all equally dedicated to one thing, ensuring that your sister Louisa has everything she needs. At only 5 years old, she doesn't need to know about the harsh realities of life in the castle just yet. But some of them are unavoidable. It was a long, hot summer this year. While the Duke was entertaining, there was no rest for the servants. During brutal, sweaty days, you were still carrying laundry and stirring soup alongside. Fortunately, the castle was built to handle the warmth. The stone walls are natural insulators, absorbing much of the heat and making anything inside it just a little bit cooler. You thought about your father, standing in the heavy suit of armor under the blazing sun, the metal soaking up the heat. Much of your work takes place in the lower quarters, with the laundry room being underground and the kitchen being on the ground floor. Lower areas are naturally cooler as heat flows upward, and the larger stone windows bring in a cool breeze as the sun sets. Summer could be a difficult time to work, but it was survivable if you knew how to handle it. You sometimes think the servants knew better than the Duke, his audience chambers on the top floor leading him to complain constantly about the stifling heat. But you know that you'll be longing for the summer soon. Soon a chill creeps into the air. It makes some tasks easier, but it also brings new responsibilities. You and your father start the day earlier than usual, chopping firewood for the Duke's roaring fireplace, and for the small one that you're allowed to warm by in the kitchen. Your mother and sister swap light work clothes for thicker ones, bracing against the icy water in the laundry room. But winter is coming, and it's not just uncomfortable, it is life-threatening. The last leaves fall and the cold settles in. The castle becomes a bitter place. The wind howls through the halls. Your hands go numb and raw from chopping firewood. Your mother and sister shiver in the laundry room, the icy water soaking into their bones. The Duke rarely leaves his audience room these days, demanding that all his meals be brought to him in front of the fire. His mood seems to take a turn for the worst these months. But Mother remains upbeat. Every call to his chambers means a few minutes in front of his fire. Because the cold doesn't just arrive, it lingers. It's just the beginning of winter, but it's already hard. The castle keeps the heat out as well as it keeps it in, which works against you now. Even the sun doesn't help much. The stone walls hold the cold, absorbing what little warmth there is, stopping it from spreading. Stone is a perfect conductor for cold, so unless you are right by the fire, the heat barely reaches you at all. And it seems like the wind never leaves. Your access to the ocean is surely beautiful. On rare days off as a young boy, you loved to swim off the coast. But during the winter, it brings the winds sweeping in from the sea. The castle is a massive interconnected network of passages, staircases, and courtyards with very few doors, and that means wind circulates, especially on the upper floors. Even deep inside, strong winds make it feel like you're outside. Sometimes you can smell the sea carried on the gusts. Most windows are covered only with a thick cloth, offering little protection. The Duke's room has wooden shutters, but even they barely hold up against the strongest winds. You know, this is only the beginning. If you love these survival stories from the past, make sure to like and subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming. And don't forget to share it too. Your family has been lucky to survive past winters, mostly. You still have some memories of your grandfather, a strapping old man with a thick gray beard. He trained your father in the art of being a guardsman and never shirked his duty. You were only 5 when he passed away in his sleep after a long night at his post. The cold had worn him down, his body never able to warm up no matter how hard he tried. And no one is coming to help you. You're not as familiar with the rest of the castle staff. They have their own quarters and you rarely have a chance to talk to them. But you have noticed that after every winter there are fewer familiar faces and more people brought in to replace them. You're disposable to the Duke, and not everyone makes it through the cold months. Your parents say things will be fine this time, but you don't think they've ever been this cold before the first snow. It's time to prepare for what's coming next. The Duke isn't a generous man, but he is a reliable one. Your family is paid for its labor, and that allows your father to head to the market every once in a while to buy food and supplies. Additionally, the servants are given a small corner of the courtyard to raise animals, and your family has some chickens and goats as well as a small vegetable garden. Your sister helps harvest all they can get during your off time. Hunting on the Duke's grounds is prohibited, but you and your father are able to go into the forest and occasionally bring back a rabbit or a game bird. Because time is running out. Your survival is hanging in the balance, but your work comes first. Collecting firewood for the Duke's store is the main task as the weather gets colder, with the servants being allowed to take some excess and imperfect wood. It'll have to be rationed carefully. Matilda and your mother spend plenty of time sewing the Duke's winter clothes. They're able to use some excess fabric to craft winter coats for the family. These clothes are primarily made out of leather and wool, warm materials that'll trap heat well. But many of the best sources of heat also pose a threat. The fireplaces in the castle are always roaring as the winter settles in, and that means the chimneys are going full blast as well. But they're not foolproof. Smoke seeps in through the cracks in the ceilings and the walls. Fortunately, it rises up so it doesn't settle in your room too much. But it is a constant presence when you're working in the castle. You've already noticed your mother's persistent cough is making its annual appearance. She senses your worry and assures you she's fine. And other sources of warmth are even more dangerous. The Duke demands that his quarters be kept warm, so on the coldest nights it's common for metal containers to be filled with hot coals and placed around the room. They become tiny little boxes of pure heat, pushing back the cold in the harshest corners of the castle. But this comes with a risk. A spilled container could spark a fire. The boxes need to be handled with extreme care. You still have a nasty scar on your wrist from one rogue piece of coal that burned you a year ago. It doesn't seem to be fading anytime soon. And no matter where you are, there is a way to stay warm. You cast your gaze out the window and you can see the smoke from the castle walkway. You know that it's father and his men, stationed by the gate and by the freshly dug fire pit they made. This is a basic technique going back centuries. As they dig a hole in the ground and they fill it with firewood and coals, it burns throughout the day. But it's also vulnerable to the elements. A sudden rain shower can snuff it out in an instant, and a biting wind can do the same. Yet for those who spend most of their day outside, it is a lifeline. And you've spent plenty of hours preparing the castle for winter. One of the key jobs of the servants is to keep the Duke comfortable. This isn't an easy life, but it's one that provides far more protection and security than others have. That means keeping him happy. He hates few things more than the winter cold. For the last few weeks, the staff, including you, have been weatherproofing the castle best they can. This includes hanging thick, heavy tapestries. But the most important spot in the house is the Duke's bed, a large four-post bed with a wooden canopy overhead. When the curtains are drawn around the bed, it creates an airtight pocket of warmth that keeps him comfortable throughout the night. But you don't have that luxury. The servants' quarters are humble, located on the lower floor with only one window. It at least provides some basic protection from the wind. Your mother has been making the winter bedding and crafting blankets out of stray fabric and wool for weeks now. Despite that, your feet are still freezing when you get out of bed every morning. You have few sources of additional warmth, except for each other. Your sisters typically huddle close each night. Your parents have each other, of course. Your mother gave you the thickest fleece blanket for your bedding. But a servant's job is never done. Both your parents will often have to wake up in the dead of night to perform their duties. Night is often the time when enemies attack. There hasn't been an assault on the castle as long as you've been alive, but the Duke remains paranoid. A small station of guards is kept on duty at night, and when it's your father's turn, he returns shivering and pale. Your mother, meanwhile, might be called at any time to deliver jugs of boiling water to the Duke's chamber or replenish his fireplace. The servants usually trade off night shifts to ensure some get a chance at a decent night's sleep. And it's important to stay nourished. The source of survival in all homes during this brutal period is the hearth, which serves two purposes. Keeping it lit provides some warmth, but only if there's enough air exposure to allow the smoke to vent, otherwise you might never wake up. It also doubles as a stove, and that's where the simmering pot that provides your meals comes from. Dining for medieval castle servants is typically humble, consisting of bread and hearty stews that will provide much-needed warmth during the winter. But to keep fed takes preparation. The stews mostly consist of meat, dried grains, and some tubers, and it never runs out. Every single day it's topped up with whatever ingredients are available. Grains are purchased from the market, meat is harvested from the chickens and the goats you slaughtered before the coldest period, and the vegetables are dug out of the dirt. The meat was dried to allow it to be stored for an extended period, while the rest were carefully covered and kept cold to protect them from pests. The food supply doesn't completely stop during the winter, but it is limited at best. Hunting during the winter requires a long journey in dangerous terrain with less game available, so it ultimately becomes a waiting game. The cold chills your bones every night, and you wake up shivering and exhausted. You can already see the toll it's taking on your parents every day. Your mother's cough is getting worse as she continues to serve the Duke's every need. You stay outside while she brings him his food and warming supplies, but you can hear his rants from behind the closed door. He seems to be going stir-crazy, ranting about the castle being too cold and accusing his servants of ignoring his needs. And that is just one of the other threats of winter here. You are not just battling the elements, you're battling your own mind. In some ways, your family is lucky to be poor. You don't have the option to be idle during these months. If you stop working, you don't eat or have a place to stay. But for the rich, the winter brings a form of limitation that is unusual for them. They have little choice but to stay in the castle, like a sort of gilded cage. And the cold is the great equalizer. The Duke is worried for his own survival just like you are, and you almost pity him. And then you hear him throw a poker against the wall and curse at your mother. That thought leaves you quickly. As the Duke goes mad, it follows downhill. This is a small castle, so it has a relatively small staff to match. There are usually about 20 people working on hand, so your parents always have to keep other people in mind. But as the supplies dwindle and the Duke becomes more stingy with handouts, you notice things take a dark turn. Just yesterday you saw Gerard, one of the oldest staff members, scavenging near your family's room. Your father chased him off, but everyone understood. Once food starts to run out, people will try to take it from others. And if someone is desperate this early, they probably won't see the spring thaw. And you'll need everything you have to make it to the end. It's been a few years since your family accompanied the Duke into the countryside to visit the prince. That was the largest castle you have ever seen. With a staff of up to 50 people, you could see the Duke's eyes brimming with envy. But now you wonder how the castle is getting on. Things are already starting to unravel here, and a larger staff and estate must be chaotic to manage. England is littered with castles, each one waging its own private battle for survival during this time. And you're starting to feel like your family is losing theirs. It's not long before you notice the portions starting to shrink as your mother serves up the stew. She makes sure to give larger portions to your father before his nights on duty, but the bowls feel more watery than they used to be. There are only small scraps of meat. It barely stills the grumbling in your stomach. And you can see Matilda looks thinner than she used to be, but the soup still warms, and it helps you get through the night. You and your father head out the next day into the woods, successfully trapping a rabbit. You spend hours by the fire afterward, shivering, but the extra meat will go a long way towards survival. But sometimes even the best efforts might not be enough. It's about 2 months into winter when your mother falls ill. She's working in the laundry when she slumps over, briefly passing out. Matilda grabs her before she can fall face first into the vat, but she is burning up. You help Matilda take her back to your quarters and make sure to finish the Duke's laundry for her so he won't notice her absence. This isn't the first time she's taken sick, usually from exhaustion, but this feels different. She is listless, talking in her sleep, and she doesn't seem to be eating or drinking. You remember the Duke coughing in her face as he ranted the other night. He probably has enough food and warmth to ride out any illness. She is not as lucky. After a long and brutal night, she doesn't wake. You're roused by the sound of Louisa crying. You see a resigned look on your father's face. Tears fill his eyes. He's been expecting this. The castle's medic comes and quickly checks her body. She'll be buried in the servants' area of the castle's chapel courtyard alongside the people who have gone before. A small plot of land and a humble stone that your father will chisel himself. That's all that's left to remember her by. But of course, her work doesn't stop. As the eldest girl in the family now, Matilda will have to pick up the slack. Your mother taught her well. Some of her tasks are second nature by now, You help out where you can, cooking and cleaning. You even scrub the stubborn stains out of the Duke's clothes. But other tasks are a different matter. Matilda will be expected to serve the Duke personally, and he is surprised and belligerent when he sees a young girl in his room. Matilda keeps her head down, delivers his food, and then takes her leave as quickly as possible. And everyone will do their part. You're surprised to see Louisa in the laundry room. She doesn't know the ins and outs of the laundry yet, but she is surprisingly good at folding. You suppose your mother had been teaching her too, and the extra pair of hands are useful. You'll need to spend longer than usual collecting firewood and hunting. Being down one mouth, the supplies will stretch longer, but even then the odds of making it to March without additional supplies is slim, and everyone knows it. You've just finished preparing the Duke's fire when you hear the scuffle upstairs. You quickly raise the alarm. Your father grabs his armor and springs into action. You follow him, and you see a terrifying sight. 2 men, guards, holding the Duke at sword point. They're demanding to know where he keeps the extra food. This is what you feared. Your family has been extremely disciplined to keep a supply of basic food for the winter, but not everyone was so responsible. And when food runs out, people get desperate and dangerous. Your father charges into the room, sword at the ready. He's always been loyal to the Duke, perhaps to a fault, but he doesn't hesitate at all. He knows his role. The 2 men are younger, but nowhere near as skilled with a sword. One calls him a traitor and charges only to be quickly felled with a sharp slash. The other puts up more of a fight, but turns his back on the Duke, who hits him with a coal box. This allows your father to get the upper hand and finish the second traitor. His reward is a rant from the Duke about nearly allowing him to be killed, and a demand for a new coal box. The end is in sight, but the hardest still lies ahead. With 2 guards lost, the few who remain are stretched thinner than ever. You strap on a suit of armor and take the day shift, though your father won't let you stand watch at night. Despite your age, you're only a few inches shorter than your father. Under the armor, you're just as capable of intimidating an invader as anyone else. But as you've seen all too well, the biggest threats might come from within the castle, and death can come out of nowhere. It's a cold night in mid-February when the storm comes in. The wind howls like never before, and the snow comes on fast and furious. Matilda and the other servants do their best to cover all the windows, all the while the Duke roars about the cold. You load wood into the fires and check the windows. Your father is on duty outside, barring the door to any intruders, which in this weather might be just as likely to be locals desperately seeking refuge from invaders. The wind sweeps through the castle, knocking out the fire time and time again. And by the time it passes, it's already too late. The snowdrifts outside are massive, and it takes some time to dig enough to get the door open. And there, still standing guard, is your father, his armor caked with ice. You don't need to get too close to know there's no way he could have survived. He wasn't a young man, and he clearly sent his fellow guards inside while maintaining his position. That's the kind of person he was, always ready to give his all for his family or his brothers in arms. And now he has given his last, and you are on your own. But as always, life goes on. The sun comes out soon, and this was the last big snow of the season. Soon the weather starts warming, and the first signs of spring can be seen. You and Matilda are no longer children. You've now taken on the roles of your parents. You'll be expected to serve the Duke just like them going forward. But you've got your sister through the winter, and sometimes that's all that can be hoped for. Survival against the odds. When there wasn't even a castle to protect you, how did people survive? Check out How Did Humans Sleep During the Ice Age Without Freezing to Death for all the details on humanity's earliest survivors. Or watch this video instead.